news. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has sacked top officials of the national oil company about 27 days after the exit of its erstwhile group chief executive officer, Mr. Mele Kyari. Top among those departing immediately are the Chief Upstream Investment Officer, NNPC Upstream Investment Services, Bala Wunti. Others who were affected by the sackings included the Managing Director of the Kaduna Refinery, Ibrahim Onoja, as well as the Chief Compliance Officer and former Managing Director of NNPC Trading, Lawal Shade. But a source who confirmed the development to This Day newspaper sought to downplay it, describing it as routine and stressed that a number of those who were asked to leave their posts were already on their way out due to retirement. Some have, however, insinuated that some of the firings had to do with their closeness to the former GCEO Kyari, who was fired by the president earlier this month. Aside from the top officials who were asked to leave, over 200 other employees were impacted, This Day understood. Well, now to the telco sector, where 22 years after the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 was enacted and activated, the House of Representatives Committee on Communications yesterday began a 2-day colloquium in Lagos to appraise the Communications Act by discussing its impact and challenges since 2003, with a view to reviewing it in line with the technology revolution. Participants stressed that the need for a review that would bring about the development of new strategies that would empower NCC and make it an independent regulator. They were of the view that the new act should be able to strengthen the cybersecurity framework, enhance innovation, address the regulatory overlaps between NCC and National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, and also address the issue of protection of national critical information infrastructure, NCII, among others. They added that the Communications Act 2003 was no longer in tune with modern realities in the telecoms sector. And now to politics, where acting PDP National Chairman Umar Damagum has decried the defection of Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborowori alongside the party's former vice presidential candidate Ifeanyi Okowa, vowing that the PDP will head to court to reclaim the governorship seat and other defectors holding national and state assembly positions. Arise correspondent Mary Chinda reports.
It is the first National Working Committee meeting since the governor of Delta State and the party's former vice presidential candidate Ifeanyi Okowa, alongside other elected officials, announced their defection to the governing All Progressives Congress. The party's national leadership is not taking it with smiles at all.
They can coerce, like I said earlier, cajole and intimidate our members into joining them. The governor and our vice presidential candidate has not faulted the party, nor did the party did anything wrong, rather than their wish, according to them, to join the party, which to me, we've taken it with all sort of regret.
While hinting on the possibilities of a NEC meeting in May and a party convention in August, the acting national chairman announced that the party will head to court to reclaim the seats of all defectors at the state and national assembly levels, beginning from Delta State.
To recover our mandate that they have taken away, the fortune of this party cannot be just left in the hands of our adversaries. So he will take legal action to retrieve those mandates.
On the controversial issue of the rightful occupant of the PDP National Secretary position, Damagum says a final decision will be reached at the NEC meeting next month.
That this NWC has approved the recommendation so far that was read out in Ibadan, ranging from the issue that was raised in that meeting. It has discussed the convention, which will forward also to the NEC, the issue of National Secretary, the issue of convention and the committees.
Meanwhile, the party has asked the Emmanuel Ogidi-led South-South Zonal Committee to take stock of what is left of the party in Delta State, as well as oversee the party secretariat in Rivers State.
And to ask our teaming supporters to support the party.
What happened to us was a great blow. We didn't expect it. The party inaugurated us. I'm sure you're aware of that. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And then I'm sure you have also heard of somebody dissolving ESCOs and appointing. For avoidance of doubt, the chairman in Bayelsa is Honorable Solomon Agwana. The chairman in Edo is Dr. Tony Azibeme.
An interesting development also happened during Tuesday's NWC meeting, where the acting national secretary was fully in charge of the secretariat at the meeting, though the embattled national secretary, Samuel Anyanwu, was in attendance briefly. Mary Chinda, Rise News.
Well, that's a roundup of some of the top stories in Nigeria this morning, from politics to business. Dr. Abati, your take on these headlines of the day?
Okay, you have outlined 3 topics. Let me just run through them one by one. The Telecom Act. What we're told is that the House of Representatives Committee on Telecommunications is meeting in the city of Lagos, and that meeting is being attended by legal experts, members of the House of Reps, civil society, interested groups, people in that particular industry. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to take a second look at the Telecommunications Act of 2003. How many years old now? 25 years old, 22 years old, and all of that. Now, when that Telecommunications Act was introduced in 2003, it was in fact considered a game changer in Nigeria. And it was also identified and acknowledged appropriately, I think, accordingly, I think, as one of the major achievements of President Bala, of President Olusegun Obasanjo, because the process for opening up the telecom sector, all of those processes crystallized under President Obasanjo. And that's why it's possible that, vulcanizers, mechanics, auto electricians, will be able to call anybody. They all have phones. Even if most of the time, these people, I have observed, they don't have credit, or they don't have data, or they switch off data at all times. But, it became, other times, something that we promoted as something that liberalized, democratized, access to the freedom of speech. So if 22 years later, a committee of the House of Reps says it wants to take a second look at it, I think they are in order. What are they taking a look at? They are talking about the fact that, look, over 22 years, we now have new realities. Artificial intelligence is one of those realities. Now, 5G, what they call 5G, is part of that reality. I think in China, they are even talking about 10G, while Nigerians are still struggling, not even with 5G, we're still struggling here with 3G. So the framework will need to be upgraded. Then there is this thing they call, the cyber security. Nigeria has a Cyber Security Act, Prevention and Prohibition of Abuse 2015. And there have been issues along those lines. And then there's this larger issue about the Internet of Things. In other words, what I'm saying is that the conversation around this entire framework is very useful. And any law at all is a living object. Any piece of legislation is a living piece of innovation to serve the interest of the people and to protect the overall regime of the rule of law. So I hope that there will be very good outcomes from the conversation that they are having. And then, of course, issues like conflict between the NCC, Nigeria's Communications Commission, and the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, that all of those gray areas will be sorted out. That's that about that. Now, the other issue you brought up is about the PDP. Now, the PDP, yesterday, the chairman of the party, acting chairman of the party, Ambassador Damagum, says the PDP is going to go to court over the issue of data state. Incidentally, we had Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa on this program yesterday. And basically, Senator Okowa tried to justify the defection. But I would like to piggyback on the point made by Senator Damagum, that the PDP will go to court. Now, the thing again is about testing the law. Now, we had Chief Dan Ulassi on this program. I think he was the one who reminded us of the fact, although I posed the question to him deliberately, that look, you can query legislators defecting. Section 68, Section 109, 1G of the 1999 Constitution, but for governors, that it is a moral right. Now, when the PDP goes to court, I think that, yes, it will be nice for them in that party to test Section 68, Section 109. All those lawmakers that have defected, can they seek any protection within the context of the Nigerian Constitution or within the context of the Supreme Court decision that I have quoted, seriatim, in Abegunde versus Ondo State House of Assembly. The other thing is a moral issue that, people have been raising. In 1983, a certain governor in Kano State, Alhaji Abubakar Rimi, defected from the People's it's called PRP, the People's Republican Party, to the MPP, Nigerian People's Party, at that time in 1983. And Governor Abubakar Rimi said, look, for moral reasons, I won this election on the platform of the PRP, and I've gone to the MPP. I resigned my position. So, but since that time, we have not found anybody who is a moral exemplar. All these people. So that's why there is a case to be made for the argument about opportunism. People just think that they can move from one party to the other. So, Oberewori, where is his moral strength? Has he ever heard of Abubakar Rimi and all the other governors who have defected? Can somebody remind them that, yes, law is not morality, but how about your conscience? You get to a position on the platform of one party, then you abandon them midway. However, the bigger challenge that the People's Democratic Party has is about discipline. The party insists that it has a constitution. Now we're being told that there will be a national working committee meeting and a national executive council meeting. At those meetings, we would like to test Ambassador Damagum's statements yesterday, if the party will be confident enough to ensure the discipline of its own members within the framework of the laws and the codes and the regulations and the rules of the party. The Supreme Court having decided severally that the political parties have the right to determine their own issues. No, I want to comment on NNPC. Now, the story out there is that Bayo Ojulari and Ahmed Musa Kida, Austin Avuru, the new board, all the other, members, Babs Omotowa, all of them, they have taken over at the NNPC. Now, I think it's natural that when you go into a new space as the new boss, you want to move things around. You want to bring your own people. You want to dispense with the old order. After all, when Engineer Mele Kyari took over as the managing director of NNPC at that time, he too tried to reorganize things. He asked people who would like to embrace an exit strategy, get compensated for it and all of that, and then put his team together. So I think it's a natural thing that people do. They will say, I want my own team around him. But what Bayo Ojulari must not do is to use this opportunity to victimize people, or to ethnicize, or to put religion at the center of the NNPCL, because that will worsen things. These 200 people who have been asked to leave, or who have been asked to embrace retirement, I hope they are not targeting Mele Kyari's allies. I hope this is not a case of victimization. I hope that this is not a case of North versus South. When we see the list, we will comment appropriately and say that this is what we have seen in terms of what Bayo Ojulari is doing or what Ahmed Kida is doing. Number two is the point that they should remember the president's mandate. The president wants them to increase production. What will the Bayo Ojulari-led team do to increase production? Two, the president wants them to take another look at the refineries. What is the Bayo Ojulari team going to do about these refineries? Three, the bigger issue, which covers everything, is about reform. What is the nature of the reform that they are bringing to the table? It's not enough to just say we are sacking people, we are changing the environment. The downstream has already been taken care of by the president when he removed the subsidy. But there are issues at the upstream level. So it's important for the new administration at the NNPCL to act in good faith, not to victimize people, not to play up North-South divide, not to play up religion. Because NNPC, although for years they've just been doing clerical work, but at the same time, that's very important to Nigeria's interest. And we would like to see all of that. And they don't have time. It's not like, like Donald Trump was saying yesterday, 100 days in office. No, there's no time here. We have issues with external reserve. We have issues with foreign exchange. We have issues with production. I think that the Ojulari-led executive of the NNPC Limited should focus more on that. We have praised them. They are competent people. But this is not the time for vendetta. This is not the time for sour grapes. This is the time for work. And in 100 days' time, we will judge them. In 6 months' time, we will say, well, this is how they have fared. That's my message to them.
Absolutely. Now more than ever is a very critical time for the oil sector, especially knowing how important it is to Nigeria's economy. Yesterday, I came across the news that Angola, which is also an oil-dependent economy, has decided to run a stress test on their oil sector because that Angola, had based their budget on $70, an oil price of $70 for the year. And of course, we know what's happening to that. So we now ask ourselves, what are some of the stress tests? What are the responses that we are currently implementing in our own environment to navigate these rapidly changing global times? Well, anyway, when you look at NNPC and the changes that are happening there, there's a lot to be said, and there's a lot to be dissected and analyzed. Yesterday, of course, we woke up to the news that $897 million had literally gone down the drain as the Warri refinery that was celebrated as having made a grand opening on the 30th of December had shut down on the 25th of January. It did not operate for up to a month, yet it had gobbled up almost $1 billion. Sadly, also, the Port Harcourt refinery, which again was also celebrated and said to have been launched at a 60% capacity last year, towards the end of last year, it has been discovered that it is operating, but only doing so at a 40% capacity. So this shakeup is important. Just yesterday we were saying, yes, there's a new sheriff in town where NNPC is concerned. What are some of the changes that we are going to see? Because yes, the old administration is out, but we've always advocated that the issues here are not necessarily human issues, but cultural issues. So yes, you can remove one person and replace with the next person, but a bigger cultural reform needs to happen within the NNPC. Now, it's good to see that there are some new faces coming in, but more importantly, we need a fresh audit. We need to understand, where did that $897 million go towards a refinery that has been shut down for the past 4 months, only operated for less than 30 days? That's deplorable. This creates a trust deficit. This is why when some of these announcements are made, it takes away from the joy of it. People approach it with a degree of caution. People question some of the statements and release that are then made because this is the outcome. So many times the hopes of Nigerians have been raised only for the truth to reveal itself. So it's important for us to embrace transparency. I'm glad to see that this particular report is out, this information is out, but what next? Where is the accountability? Where are the checks and balances? So that's what we're looking forward to from this new management. So yes, you can sack 200 people and so forth. It's been done several times in the past. The real question is, what is the real reform? And let us start seeing some of those changes. Let's start breathing a breath of fresh air and understanding that this is a new NNPCL and it means business. Now, I'll go very quickly to the telecoms sector. Now, of course, we all know that the Nigerian Communication Act enacted in 2003, 22 years ago. Since then, some major milestones have been reached in telecoms, including the introduction of smartphones, which happened in 2007. So you can only imagine that this piece of legislation addressed a world where smartphones had yet to be invented. So this is a very welcome development, and I hope such updates can be done regularly because we know how rapidly shifting the world of telecoms and technology are moving at the moment. Well, one central thing that was important to me was the issue of cybersecurity framework and privacy, data privacy and protection, because we know that currently the FCCPC is sitting on the $220 million fine towards Meta and WhatsApp. And what are some of the issues there? The issues there were around data privacy. The issues there were around the fact that we don't know what some of these tech companies are doing with Nigerian data, because a lot of it is not even being stored locally, it's being stored elsewhere. So there needs to be a meeting of minds that ensures that privacy is maintained, data is protected, and that Nigerian data is treated in a fair manner, in a similar manner as data is protected in other jurisdictions, because this lawsuit found that Nigerian data was being treated in an unfair manner. So we do hope that there will be positive outcomes from this engagement as we seek to update the Nigerian Communications Act, as well as the reinforcement of NCC as an independent regulator. NCC will need its own budget. It cannot report to the Ministry of Communications if it's truly to be a free and fair and independent, non-partisan regulator.